Chapter 1. The Lure of the Unclaimed. The year was 1872, and the American West was less a place on the map and more a fever in the national blood. It was a wild, untamed frontier where the rules of the civilized East, of Boston bankers and New York society, melted under the vast, scorching sun. This was the land of the go-getter, the place where a man could reinvent himself overnight, where the dirt beneath his feet held the potential for limitless fortune. All it took was a little grit, a lot of luck, and a willingness to believe the unbelievable. And in that year of boundless national optimism, two scruffy, unassuming miners walked into the San Francisco office of renowned financier Asbury Harpending with a secret that would shake the very foundations of American finance and expose the deep-seated avarice hidden beneath the veneer of its high society. Their names were Philip Arnold and John Slack, a pair of cousins from Kentucky whose appearance was the very antithesis of wealth. They were dusty, ill-fittingly dressed, and spoke with the slow, laconic drawl of men who preferred the company of a mule to a man in a frock coat. They had a small leather pouch, a common tobacco bag, that they opened with a theatrical slowness, as if revealing the Holy Grail. What poured onto Harpending's polished mahogany desk was not gold dust or silver ore, but a breathtaking, unbelievable cascade of raw gemstones. Diamonds, large and brilliant, some with a faint yellow hue, rubies the color of deep claret, and most astonishingly, several massive deep blue sapphires. They were uncut, unpolished, and unmistakably real. Harpending, a man who had seen his share of Western...
Chapter 5. The Unmasking and the Indelible Stain. The Race Against Time. Clarence King and Samuel Emmons rode back to San Francisco with a burden of proof that weighed heavier than any diamond, the undeniable truth. They knew that with every passing day, the syndicate, the San Francisco and New York Mining Company, was pouring more capital into the fraud, preparing to sell shares to the unsuspecting public. William Ralston, the founder of the powerful Bank of California, was the financial kingpin backing the operation, and confronting him was tantamount to declaring war on the West Coast's financial system. King realized he couldn't wait for a formal meeting. He had to stop the initial public offering, IPO, before the general public was ruined. The showdown at the Palace Hotel. King burst into the grand offices of the Palace Hotel, the nerve center of San Francisco's elite. He demanded an immediate audience with the syndicate's leadership. The mood was initially one of smug confidence. The investors had their genuine gems, their military hero General Dodge, and the backing of the East Coast's wealthiest. They were on the cusp of announcing the biggest diamond mine in history. King didn't offer theories, he presented evidence. He laid out the geological samples. The diamond? Genuine, but chipped and low quality, the kind purchased in bulk from European waste heaps. The host rock? Wrong. Not the dense volcanic kimberlite necessary for natural diamonds, but simple Mesozoic sandstone. The crucial detail: he displayed the tiny, almost invisible tool marks on some of the larger rubies and sapphires, clear indications that they had been roughly pressed into the softer soil, not grown in bedrock. He delivered the verdict with cold finality. Gentlemen, you have bought a colossal lie. This is a salted claim. The immediate reaction was denial, then fury. Ralston, Harpending, and Dodge, men who commanded respect and feared no one, initially tried to dismiss King as a jealous scientist trying to protect the perceived monopoly of the South African mines. But King's evidence was too meticulous. He had the exact geographical coordinates and the scientific authority. He proved that the sheer diversity and low-grade quality of the stones were inconsistent with a single, untouched natural deposit. It was, in fact, an expensive international collection of discards. The press leak and public panic. Recognizing the immense scale of the financial cover-up that would ensue, King acted preemptively. He immediately leaked the full details of his investigation to the San Francisco Evening Bulletin. The headline that hit the streets the next morning was devastating. "The Great Diamond Fraud Exposed. Scientist King denounces the find as a colossal salting operation." The market instantly froze. The news ricocheted across the telegraph wires to New York, London, and Amsterdam. Investors who had already secured future shares were ruined. The confidence in Western investment, already precarious, collapsed. The ensuing chaos was a crisis of confidence. The Bank of California, heavily exposed by Ralston's investments, began to face an immediate liquidity crunch. The scandal didn't just expose a mining fraud, it exposed the gullibility and profound greed of the titans of American industry. From the founders of Tiffany & Co. to Andrew Carnegie, who had fallen for the oldest trick in the book, the promise of easy wealth. Chapter 6. The Ghost in the Machine, the Fate of the Con Man. The disappearance. While the bankers and investors of San Francisco descended into recriminations and lawsuits, the architects of the hoax, Philip Arnold and John Slack, were long gone. They had taken their massive haul, the $660,000 in cash and securities, and vanished immediately after the final sale, fulfilling their rustic image as men seeking anonymity. They traveled by train, moving east and then south, eventually settling back in their quiet, unassuming hometown of Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Arnold, the mastermind, was careful. He paid for everything in gold and currency, never once using a bank check or revealing the source of his money. The unbelievable return and revenge. The syndicate, desperate to reclaim their money and their damaged reputations, hired an army of detectives and Pinkertons to track down the duo. They finally located Arnold in Elizabethtown, living a life of quiet yet conspicuous prosperity.
Chapter 8. The Price of Gullibility. Andrew Carnegie's Lesson. The Young Industrialist's Blunder. At the time of the Great Diamond Hoax, Andrew Carnegie was a young, ruthlessly ambitious industrialist on the cusp of becoming the king of steel. He had already made a significant fortune in railroads and bridges, but his thirst for spectacular, effortless wealth led him right into the Diamond Syndicate's trap. Carnegie was introduced to the venture by his trusted New York banking partners, Duncan, Sherman and Company. The sheer weight of the names involved, powerful financiers, military heroes, and the esteemed Tiffany's, overrode his usual cautious judgment. For Carnegie, buying into the diamond field was not just an investment. It was an affirmation of his status, a guarantee that he was among the true financial elite, privy to secrets that would make him richer than the gold barons. He invested a significant sum, approximately $100,000, a personal fortune at the time, money he had painstakingly accumulated through years of hard work. The idea that his fortune could multiply overnight simply by owning a piece of the American West was irresistible. The humiliation and the philosophical shift. When Clarence King's colorgrams and the San Francisco newspaper reports exposed the fraud, the humiliation was intense. Unlike the San Francisco financiers who faced ruin, Carnegie's entire fortune was not threatened, but his most prized possession, his reputation for shrewd, infallible business sense, was gravely wounded. He was forced to confront the mortifying reality he, the future master of industry, had been easily outwitted by two rustic Kentucky con artists. Carnegie was initially furious, then deeply reflective. The hoax revealed a glaring flaw in his capitalist philosophy. The moment he succumbed to the desire for unearned speculative wealth, he became vulnerable. He recognized that his investment was not based on his expertise in steel or railroads or manufacturing, but on sheer, reckless avarice. He later reflected on the experience as one of the most valuable, albeit painful, lessons of his life. The experience taught me that in the heat of a speculative fever, even the wisest men will discard common sense.
I was fooled by the simple trick of the salted mine, and it was a salutary lesson. Andrew Carnegie, recounted in his autobiography. The Gospel of Wealth's Genesis. The fallout from the diamond hoax contributed directly to the development of Carnegie's most famous philosophy, the Gospel of Wealth. The experience solidified his conviction that great fortunes should not be made through gambling or speculation, but through hard work, industry, and the creation of tangible value. He resolved to dedicate himself entirely to the steel industry, a business he understood intimately, where every dollar earned was backed by iron, coal, and the